What's up, everybody? Billy Scott Real Estate here, bringing you live podcast number 4. We're excited to roll this one out. We shifted gears a little bit from the last couple episodes where Sarah got to dig a little deep, kind of get into the roots of my upbringing and some of my trials and tribulations. It was an opportunity to show some of our vulnerability, some of the real side of some things in life aren't as glamorous, and some of the feedback we've got from friends and family and followers is it's what people want in the real world is what the real side of it is. Everybody paints this perfect picture of life, and life is not a perfect situation for most, and this is just the real side of it. And it's some things I'm not as proud of when I talk about my past, but the thing that it does is it brings awareness out there, and it allows things to get off my chest as well. Things that we've overcame in life, what we've done with it, and how we've handled it. There's still plenty more growing ahead. There's going to be more mistakes ahead, but just like in business, as in life, is sometimes we're going to make mistakes, we're going to fall forward. We talk about that, and it's not just going to set us back and slow us down. So today I get to be host and ask some of the deep questions, and we're going to get to know who is Sarah Cade. And Sarah is the first person I hired when I broke off on my own as a solo agent. And it was towards the end of March of 2024. And she came on board early May, actually on her anniversary day. So,
Yeah, my husband's thrilled that I have to share our anniversary with you.
Thank you, Stephen. All right. So we're gonna dig into this and see who is Sarah Cade, and let's hear her story. So overall, tell us a little bit about your upbringing, your childhood, and, tell us where'd you grow up?
Well, I was born in Sacramento, California, and then when I was 6 months old, my family moved up to Oregon, where my dad's from. And so we actually lived in my great-grandparents' farmhouse off of Highway 20, just past Coastal Farms and Home Depot right there. So, grew up there for a couple years. My dad went back to school to get his master's in teaching. And then my dad grew up in North Albany. So they owned a bunch of property out in North Albany. And so they gave my parents a piece of land. And so we got to build an awesome house that I got to grow up in. I don't think I realized how awesome it was growing up, but it really was. I loved it. Big yellow house on top of a hill. It was great. So I grew up there. I have 2 brothers, one that's 8 years older and one that's 8 years younger. So we're basically
little widespread.
3 separate families in a way, because we're so spread out.
Right.
The parents that raised Eric are not the parents that raised me, and they're not the parents that are raising Caleb, because there's 10 years of development and growth that's between all of us. So it's So
well, think of being a parent, myself, my kids are 8 years apart or 6 years apart. And the way you parent your second one, you are not as protective. You're not as on guard so much. You literally, how would I say it? You're a little bit more relaxed and comfortable with parenting on your second child. And by the third, you're like, they'll be fine. Let them get some bruises. They're tough.
Yeah. So I loved growing up there. I really was my family. I put it like this? I grew up in a high functioning, dysfunctional family. Great people, love my parents. I was blessed compared to a lot of people I know.
Okay.
But we also had our own share of struggles and things that were really hard, growing up, you think your parents are perfect, and then you start to realize, like, oh, wait, nobody's parents are perfect. Actually, mine have their own traumas from their childhoods and how
Yeah.
they grew up in their life that they're also trying to navigate while also trying to raise and nurture and educate these other little humans.
Yep.
So, yeah, we definitely had some hardships as a family and things that we had to work through, but we're all on a path of growth and trying to just get through life
Yeah.
together. So, yeah, it's good.
Well, I think that's, again, more of that real side. I think there's a lot of people that feel that way,
Mhm.
but nobody talks about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody talks about the things that didn't work. They only want to talk about what went well.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's where we want to share, some of our experiences, and
Yeah.
hopefully others feel vulnerable to want to talk about that when they come
Yeah.
on as well, no matter what side of the industry we're talking about or just
Right.
people in general.
Yeah. And like I was like a complete opposite of you. I was like such a good girl. Like,
Whoa.
never touched drugs, never touched alcohol until like I literally I just went to my first liquor store. And I'll be 24 this month.
Hold up.
My husband corrupted me.
Man, I just think, boy, have the tables turned. My upbringing, and you were almost 24 years old to attend your first liquor store. That's a big achievement,
Yeah, the
Sarah.
Lebanon liquor store is awesome. Like, I could hang out there. It's so fun. Like, there's just great people. I was like, what? I've been missing this for years.
I think there's going to be some comments on this one.
It's like the nicest place in Lebanon. No joke. Like, it's so nice.
That's terrible, but funny.
Anyway.
So tell me a little bit about where'd you go to school since you moved up here, lived in that big yellow house and up on a hill. Where'd you go to school? And tell me a little bit about that.
So I went to public school till 3rd grade, and then I was really struggling in math, which is ironic because my dad's a math teacher. And they were holding me back. Like, they wouldn't let me go out to recess. Like, I'd have questions and they never had time to answer it. Like, they were just like, oh, you'll get it eventually. And so I was like falling behind and being penalized in a sense. Like, I didn't get to socialize because of it. So I had really good friends, the Hamels, who were homeschooled. And I just told my mom, like, I really want to be homeschooled. And she was like, okay, well, she didn't, I don't know. She didn't really, it's not that she didn't want to. She just really didn't think like my dad would be on board with that. He's a public school teacher. So she was like, write your dad a letter, and tell him everything. So I was like, okay. So I wrote him a letter. I remember him reading it and him literally being like, okay, yeah. Like, if you feel like this is what you want to do, like, we'll make it happen. And my mom was like, no, what?
She wanted your dad to be the bad guy.
Yeah, it was just funny. She was like, what? She was just so shocked. So, so she quit her job at the school district office and she started homeschooling me. And it was we learned so much, together. It was cool. And then I was homeschooled kind of like on my own for like a couple years. And then we found Classical Conversations, which is a homeschool co-op.
Okay.
I can't say enough good things about it. Like, my experience in it was so good. And the whole purpose of it is to know God and make him known through everything that you learn.
Yeah.
And so it kind of gives like a purpose greater than just like learning all this stuff to pass, to get a good grade, to then move on with my life.
Yep.
It was just so, I learned how to debate and critical think, and I learned how to have productive and respectful conversations with people who don't agree with you and have differing opinions. And I learned just a lot about like, how do I learn, and everybody learns different. And you should be figuring that out in school. What works for you? What doesn't work for you? So that you can keep that through your life. Like, I use some of those same skills I learned in school and my job now.
Yeah.
And it's just funny, like, the things that I still remember, because a lot of it's like memory based. So like we learned the whole world timeline, and there's like a song, like I think it's like 15 minutes or something. I can still, like, it's in my head, like, or my times tables. I know all my times tables. There's like a song, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. You know, you just like go through. So I was just so grateful for that. I had such good friends. Like we were just so close, and we're all just, it's not that we were perfect. We were good kids. Like,
Yeah.
you know, we wanted to do right and do right by others. And, you know, we had wild times at Frozen Yogurt and Fred Meyer's. That was our rowdiness. We'd go get froyo and walk around Fred Meyer's and cause trouble. And
I'd say your definition of wild might be a little different than mine.
It is. It is.
But to each their own.
Yeah.
So to hit on a little bit about, you said, you know, you were struggling in third grade with math, and you felt like, man, you had to, you know, study in class because you were missing recess time and socializing time.
Yeah.
And then you thought about doing homeschooling. So how did you balance the social aspect? Because that's something I've heard a lot in society is like, well, you know, there's a lot of homeschool kids that don't have a lot of social skills or the social aspect. Now, you know, to each, you know, whatever, like some have a lot more than others, and some, you know, it shows. But how did you find all your social time if you were homeschooled? What did you do with that?
So this is a great question because it's so true. Like that's kind of like the stereotype that homeschoolers are like weird.
Like they don't get to their first liquor store until 23.
Hey now. So my parents just did a really good job. I was always a social butterfly. Like, I don't know. I always remember just doing things with other people. Like I'd go over to my friends' houses, and I still had friends from when I was in public school too. So like I still hung out with them and did stuff. But what's nice about Classical Conversations was you are all together on one day a week. So for us, it was Monday.
Okay.
And that was like your social time in class all together. And then like you have your homework for the whole week. And then like you can go meet with your friends at each other's houses and do your homework together throughout the week. Like you can get it done as fast or as slow as you want. And then I started, let's see. I ended up doing tennis pretty young because I did dance for many years, stopped doing that, and then I got into tennis.
Okay.
And my mom actually set up, they still go to this day, but she negotiated with the Albany Tennis Club to set up homeschool tennis lessons at like a bulk price. And so we started doing that. And then I got more friends that way.
Yeah.
We did like a Girl Scout version of like, it's called Keepers of the Home. And so it's for young girls, and you learn like how to sew and cook and like just basic things. Like we built like stilts and did woodworking and like branding and did all kinds of different things.
Yeah.
Went and pressed cider and did all these field trips. Like, yeah, my mom did a really good job of like getting, I think maybe that was something that she was concerned about too. Like both my parents, like they wanted to make sure we were still like socialized.
Right.
Weren't just stuck in the house all the time. And I would go to school with my dad, like, and that was fun. So like I got to like go be in public school and like get to see like what's kind of the norm in a sense. And I enjoyed that. But yeah, I don't ever really remember a time like not being with my friends or, having that social aspect.
So it sounds like you got plenty of social time, and it's all kind of what you do with it, and you know, different organizations that you are affiliated with, like the tennis or the different, you know, clubs. So that's great. I mean, it's not every homeschool kid gets a lot of that.
Yeah.
Some of them are working on their parents' farm or, you know, which is great.
Yeah.
But maybe it's less social interaction with kids their age. But it all happens in different forms.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
It does.
So tell me what you think about your upbringing, because you are very mature for 23 years old. I'm blown away by the things that you're able to do and how professional you are, and you can read a room. Why, like, how are you so mature at your age? And was that always a thing ever since you were growing up, or what?
Yeah. There were two things that people always told me. It was, you're so tall and you're so mature. That was what everybody always said. I always took it as a compliment.
Okay.
But as I've gotten older, I've realized like, oh, it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Um, Maturing quickly as a kid means that there were reasons you had to kind of grow up fast. And so, like I said, like we were a high functioning, dysfunctional family. Like there was some emotional turmoil for everybody with different things. And like, I'm not going to share all of it mostly because it's personal for my family. Like I have to be careful of what I share because
Yeah.
they're not here. They might not want me to share some of
Yeah.
that. So I won't go into too much detail about it, but I just, my role in my family was I just wanted to make everybody happy. And I wanted to be the supportive one and I wanted to be the peacemaker. And I just felt like I could control that. And so I I just learned, like I learned to watch my family, I learned to watch other people, I pick up on cues of, in a sense like how do I keep myself emotionally safe? Like
Hmm.
and which now learning like it's actually called fawning. Um and people love it in a sense because yeah, it made me I'm so aware. I'm not perfect at it, but like I'm very aware of other people. Like
Yeah.
somebody can walk in a room, like say we're in a big gymnasium and somebody walks in the door and I just happen to kind of feel something and I see them, like I just can pick up on something's off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um so it's a blessing. It makes it really great in work cuz like I feel like when we're interacting with clients and things like that, I can just feel how they're feeling.
Hmm.
It's definitely a great asset. It's just when I use it almost as people pleasing,
Yeah.
right? To feel like I need to protect myself or, something like that that it becomes an issue, but yeah, it's hard. It's very hard to kind of look at yourself and sometimes I'm like, "Man, can you just like be immature for a second? Like
Right.
just be 20 years old and dumb." Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, I was just always so cautious about everything I did and all the decisions I made and like thinking through everything and didn't want to make the wrong choice and like I just honestly, I guess I just wanted to be perfect. Like
Well, I mean, I'm giving you an example of the opposite of that. I thought about that long and never thought too hard about it, was
yeah,
moving forward in the fast
yeah,
lane.
yeah.
So we're seeing both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah, I know. It's quite funny.
So tell me some of the jobs that you did at a young age or what opportunities you had at a young age because you were so mature.
Yeah. I it's funny because I was actually really shy as a kid when I was younger, and something just started to change for me. I started becoming more outgoing, and so I've always like looking back, I kind of asserted myself and was put in leadership positions. I think it was because people just saw that I was so mature
Yeah.
and I could handle more than
Hmm.
what other kids could handle. And so, I mean, I started babysitting pretty young, like,
Okay.
and watching people's kids. And I started out like with my mom in the nursery at church. And then pretty soon like I started teaching Sunday school for another group of kids. And
How old were you during that time?
I want to say I was like 13, 12, 13,
Wow.
somewhere in there. Like, I don't know what I was doing.
How our paths crossed.
Yeah, I was like teaching and then oh, I know there's so many more things. I got into I was always into music. I've been super musical my whole life. And at church I got into worship leading and that was like amazing. I learned so much about myself and other people and being a leader and what that looks like. Um yeah, I really did. I don't know. And then yeah, I guess I did do the we've talked about this before, but in my school, even I think in anybody's school, you kind of have like your classes, right? That's like your class of freshmen, sophomores, seniors.
Right.
You don't mix like a ton necessarily, right? Like usually your seniors aren't necessarily hanging out with the freshmen.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it, but in my school it was the same way where I was like, man, we just have all these great girls and I wish that we could all just like hang out and actually like connect. So I started a group one summer. I think I was 16 and did it at Darlene Kolb's house, Nana, and they had a pool. So we did it in the summer when we weren't in school, and so we got
Okay.
together once a week, and everybody brought snacks, and I led like a basically a Bible study on insecurities because I was like, man, what do teenage girls struggle with? Insecurities, right? I mean, all women do and all people do, but
Yeah.
it was one of those things I was like, man, how cool would it be if we were able to share what our insecurities are and like really help each other and like almost help heal and build confidence in each other. And so I had everybody write down their insecurities on a piece of paper. We put them in a like a bucket thing, and then we drew them all out and categorized them, and it was just so cool to see like how everybody started to feel seen. When you start seeing that, wow, like there's like 4 other people here that are insecure about the way they look
Mm-hmm.
or the way they talk or, whatever it is, it started to create this connection between all of us that it was like, yeah, we all have things that like we're insecure about or that make us nervous or that we think people are thinking about or judging us by. And so
Yep.
it was, yeah, like I still see some of those girls and their parents and stuff, and they're like, that was such a fun thing. Like it really, and I look back, I'm like, man, I want to do more things like that, Yeah. I just naturally kind of got into these positions and things where I was leading.
Well, there's part of me that's not surprised in the least bit because of how mature I've seen you in the couple of years that I've known you, just from day one. So, like, hearing more stories about your upbringing and all that, it's I should be shocked by it because of how young you were and how mentally strong you were or mentally advanced. But also, on the other hand, knowing you, it's like it's not a big surprise to me, but it is out of the norm, the amount of leadership that you've done at a young age, for sure. Just the way you carry yourself. So transition into you graduate. What's your next step? What was your overall like mission of what you thought you were going to do in life, and how did Stephen interrupt that?
Well, I was that girl. I was like, I'm gonna just be a boss babe, and like I'm just gonna go do big things, and I don't need a guy. Like I'm good, I really didn't even want kids. Like I just wasn't sure. Even though I love kids, I was just like, nah, it's just I want to go live my life. I just didn't want to deal with anybody or anything. So I had been super passionate about ministry. I went on some mission trips to Belize with our church, and even if you're not religious, mission trips are amazing. You go thinking that you're going to go help other people, and those people that literally have nothing end up helping you.
Man, let that sit in for a second.
Yeah, and it's the most humbling thing. And it's crazy how happy you are. Like literally we were in Belize sleeping on cement floors in a school in this little village in Belize. And I remember waking up and there was like we had like pop-up tents, and there was like a giant something on my tent. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, in the middle of the night. And I remember like just tapping my tent, and it was a massive cockroach. And I just heard it scuttle away. And like you had to kick the toilets to make sure there weren't any tarantulas in them before you went to the bathroom. And like, I had a frog pop out of the shower handle like while I was showering, and some of their frogs are poisonous. Yeah, it's just like you realize like I was so happy there, and I had like, it's not that I didn't have luxuries while I was there. I absolutely did still, but going from living in a beautiful yellow house on a hill, in North Albany, which is a really nice area, to going and being in this little village in Belize. So humbling. Like these people that are just so happy, and they really don't have a lot, but they have all they need, and it's all they know. So it was really humbling. So I wanted to get more into that. So I think God just kind of put that on my heart. And so I was like, okay, I want to go into ministry, but I don't want to go into ministry and have no money. It was something that, growing up in the church, sometimes like it's kind of the old way of thinking like having money is like bad. It's really not. It's just how you use it, and money just reveals people's character,
Yeah.
right? And so I was like, but I could do so much more if I had money.
Hmm.
I could help more. So I started doing school online for business in 2019 through Western Governors University, which is awesome. Did that, and I was working. Oh, I had 3 jobs at that time.
What were your jobs?
I worked at B&R Auto Wrecking's corporate office, just paperwork and different things. And then I worked, I was cleaning houses and I was a nanny. So I just kind of filled up my time, and I was still house sitting. I did a lot of house sitting too. So
So
I
you're
was,
like 17 years old at this point?
yeah, 17. I started really working. Well, I guess that's kind of my work history. If I go back a little bit, I started working with my dad in the blueberry fields in the summer because my dad's a teacher. And
Mhm.
so he, to make extra money, would work in the summers at the blueberry farm. And so I did that every summer up until we moved and they sold the farm and we weren't able to anymore. But so I started going with him, I think at like 9, 10, somewhere in there. I wouldn't go every day because it's like, you go super early and you're
Yeah.
there and it's hot. And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm very fair skinned and I don't do well in heat. Okay. So it was really, I loved it. I got to spend the summers with my dad, and that was so fun. I learned how to work. And so I did that every summer up until I was 17, 16, 17, right in there.
Okay.
And then, yeah, so then even through then, I was still nannying. I was still, still working at B&R, doing different jobs. I don't know. I didn't know. I was like, well, I want a car and I want things kind of like how you were talking about with your story. It's like, I want to work, like,
Yep.
so yeah. So I was working, going to school in the fall of 2019. Right around October, December in there, I got reacquainted with a family that I had grown up with in the homeschool co-op. And this mom who jumped forward is now my mother-in-law. I remember I was in a parking lot at school and she came up to me and she goes, I have this son. And you guys, like, I just think someday this would be such a good, like, fit. Like, I just think you guys would get along great, and I'm looking, like, this is also very normal. Like, homeschool moms, I don't know if other moms are like this, but homeschool moms are, like, vetting. They're like, okay, what girl for my boy, or whatever. Like, it's a thing. And so I remember traveling with my mom for some homeschool stuff, and we went down to Medford, and there was this mom, and she was like, you have to meet my son. Like, it's like, these arranged marriages, I guess. I don't know. It was just so funny. And so that was when I was 15 and he's 4 years older than me. So I'm like, you're weird. Like, no, that's gross.
Yeah.
So then I reconnected with her and we started I was teaching and helping with tennis lessons at the club. And she was like, my son is like, he's back living at home, like, and I'm just like, I'm not interested. Like, I'm doing my thing. Like, I'm on my path. Like, I don't have time for boys. Like, are you kidding me? Like,
Yep.
and I had never had a boyfriend. I had guys that were interested, but like, I just was like, it wasn't that they weren't good enough. It was just like, I don't know, just wasn't the right person. God didn't bring them in my life.
Your
for
maturity
that.
level, a typical boy's maturity
Yeah,
level.
that too.
There's a wide gap there.
Yeah. And so, and like I'd been praying since I was probably 16, like, God, whenever you bring me someone, like, I want one and done. Like, I'm not interested in dating a bunch of people to figure out who I am and what I want. I was like, I want one person and that's who I'm committing to for the rest of my life. Like, if we're going to do this, I'm going all in and it's going to be exactly what I'm supposed to do. So January 31st of 2020, my families conspired, his family and my family, to set up this family dinner. I don't know if it was actually that intentional, but I feel like it was. Yeah. So they came over for dinner and like I had house sat for them. Never met him, never saw a picture of him, like couldn't even remember his name. Like, had no idea who he was. And I was friends, like, with his sister. It was just funny. They come over, and it wasn't one of those, like, Oh my gosh. Like spark moments at all. I was like, okay, like whatever, he's a dude. Like, I don't know. Like there was nothing. And he was, and same for him. Like he was just kind of like, yeah, she's cute. Like whatever.
Yeah.
Well, then his mom was like, you got to show her your pictures of your Jeep and like your off-roading. And then I was like, oh, I was like, that's interesting. So our joke is like, I only went out with him because of the Jeep. I really didn't even care
Yeah.
like about him necessarily. Like I was like, he's whatever, but the Jeep is really cool. Like let's go off-roading.
The Jeep allowed an opportunity
Yes,
to get to know Steven for who he is.
Yeah,
and
he tells people the Jeep is the only reason that he got me. So we go off-roading. And fun fact, he was never gonna buy a Jeep. It just like came up. And he bought that Jeep like in the summer of 2019. And I'm not like a superstitious person, but on the license plate, the numbers were 215, and that was the day we went off-roading together. It was February 15th.
Okay.
And that was like our first date. And I was just like, that is so weird. But anyway, it's probably just a coincidence, but I still think about it. I'm like, that's so strange. Anyway, so we went off-roading, and he was the first person that I just felt so safe with. Like emotionally, it was just like, I didn't have to pretend. I didn't have to like talk myself up or anything. Like there was no pretense. It was literally like he was so calm, so open, just like.
Imagine how much easier that relationship was than a standard relationship that everybody's trying to be somebody that they think they're supposed to be, but it's not them.
Yeah. And I had kind of grown up trying to be what everybody needed me to be. Yeah. And so to get in a vehicle and go drive with this guy who I didn't even really know and get to just talk to him, and he just was so accepting of everything, like it was wild. So then all of a sudden, I was like, man, like I kind of like him. Like before our first date, I remember telling someone like, yeah, I think he's kind of into me, but like I'm not really into him.
Typical.
Like, I was such a cocky little 19-year-old. I was like, yeah, it's fine. Like he thinks I'm cute, but like no. So then, I went off-roading, and then after that, like he wanted to hang out. I mean, it was like, I still remember like when I showed up at his house to get in the Jeep, and like he came around the corner, and the look in his eyes, I was like, this is trouble.
Like he's falling in love.
I knew. I was like, this is not going to be good. So anyway, fast forward. We dated through COVID. The world shut down. I was actually in Colorado with the family I nannied for on a trip, and had to figure out how to get a flight home. And gosh, it was chaotic. And it was cool, actually. We got to spend a ton of time together because he ended up taking severance pay and getting laid off from his job. And I ended up, I couldn't keep any of my jobs because I couldn't work. And then, they wouldn't fire me so I could collect unemployment. So I couldn't afford school anymore. So I had to drop out of school. We just really hung out. Went places. We drove a lot, like explored all over the place, hung out at each other's families' houses and stuff like that. So that was fun. And then he was dead set, like probably in the first month that like he was going to marry me. And I was like, no, like I'm 19 years old. Like we're not getting married. Like, are you crazy? Like I got plans, boy. Like you're not getting in the way of that. And we, so when we dated through the summer, that was so fun. We learned a lot about each other. And then September of 2020, he proposed to me. And this is how he proposed to me, okay? Every girl is like, okay, I need my nails done. Like, I gotta look cute, like, right? Like for the pictures, like everything. This man picks me up on a day that is like awful. I was having a terrible day. Literally was in like a flannel and jeans and my cowgirl boots, hair up and like a messy thing, like nails not done. I looked a hot mess. Takes me out to a covered bridge and goes and proposes to me. And I was just like, what? I was like, are you kidding me right now?
And it worked.
He says, he's like, his cover for it was, I just wanted you to know that I don't need you to like look all perfect and all put together for me to want to marry you. That's what he told me. And I was like, smooth, very smooth.
Oh, smooth Steven.
I've forgiven you. All right, So then we were engaged, got married in May of 2021. I was 20 years old. Moved out with him into a rental house at this amazing family. Blessed us with cheap rent.
Yeah.
So we were able to save up a bunch of money, and Yeah. I'm pretty honest. Like that first year, like we literally went on our honeymoon, and while we were on our honeymoon, I was like, "This has been fun, but like I just want to go home." Like it had nothing to
Ooh.
do with him. It was just like I didn't know how to be outside of my family.
Yeah.
Like and there was some, I had to detox from my family, and I didn't have like it was just like a clean break. It wasn't like a gradual moving out, going to school. Like it was
Yeah.
just like a boom, you're married. Like it was a lot. I
Well,
don't
think of
regret it.
19 years old. You're going from being a high school student to bam,
Yeah.
being married, and you've never been in a relationship.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you're fully committed.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm a jump in that sense kind of girl. Like if I feel called to it, like I'm going. Even if
Yeah.
it's insane, even if it's crazy and maybe not the smartest, but like if God puts that on my heart, like I'm going. And so, yeah, our first year of marriage, we probably would have gotten divorced if we wouldn't have loved God. It was hard. I think we fought like all the time. Like and we had other stresses, like family stresses too, that kind of impacted that. And then it was just a lot. Like I moved out. I had to figure out like how do I take care of a house? How do I, and not that I didn't know, but it's so different. Like living at home, like I always help my mom clean and, cook and stuff, but like doing it all on your own, doing
when it's
everything,
now your
it's
responsibility.
my job. Like I
Yeah.
was like, wow. So figuring that out, figuring our finances out and all the adult things, like I just was like, here we go. So my husband was so, so loving and so patient.
And he's still that.
He is.
Like-
He is. But that first year, man, like I honestly probably wouldn't have blamed him for just wanting to call it quits. Like, but for some reason he just saw something and was like, well, I'm gonna stick it out, So we got through that first year, and I changed jobs. I started at Keller Williams at the front desk and loved that. I tell everybody like going into KW was like, it's kind of, for me, it was like this whole other world I had never seen. Like, like in the movies where like there's a waterfall and there's some greenery, and then like you like go behind it and it like opens up and there's this whole other like world with dinosaurs and crazy things and like you didn't even know existed. That's how it felt for me coming to KW. It was like my world expanded like tenfolds.
Wow.
I just never knew like all the possibilities. So that was a gateway for me. Like I was so excited to jump into real estate and business and just learn. So I did that, and that kind of, feeds into my KW story.
Yeah. What were your responsibilities when you came on at Keller Williams, and then what'd you do with them?
Well, they call it the director of first impressions. So really you're in charge of helping agents. You answer phones, you're, helping coordinate with events, and you're assisting the team leader, CEO, and the MCA, CFO with financial stuff and, keeping the office clean and running a tight ship, supply orders and all that kind of stuff. So I learned that. I did that for I think 6 months. And then my world at KW happened like chaotically. So then it was like I found out the team leader was leaving, and then I found out the MCA was leaving, and then then the reviewing broker left or got fired, and it was like, oh my goodness, like it was so much. I was just like, okay. And then
I hear opportunity.
Yes. But for me, having I hadn't even been married a year yet. There was so much change happening. I was just trying to like figure out how to exist, and then all this change going on at this job I started that I'm still trying to learn. It was
that
like
you have no experience in.
Holy cow. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a lot. So the job that I was in was the kind of stepping stone job, was the agent services coordinator job. But that job was filled she was amazing. And so when I found out that Teresa, our MCA, was going to be stepping down, I was like, So I remember asking her, like, do you think that'd be something I could work into? Because like 6 months after being in the DFI job, I was like, okay, this is easy. Like I need something else. Like I was like, what? Like
More challenge.
Mm-hmm. And she told me, like, and I appreciated her honesty. She was like, I think it'd be too much for you. And I was like, okay. Like, and I just respected it. And I was like, she's been doing it for 5 years. Like, she
Yeah.
knows, right? And she knew me. I actually grew up like with her. Like, she's known me since I was really little. So I was like, she knows. So I just left it alone. And then the team leader at the time came, and they had been doing interviews and stuff. And she was like, hey, she's like, I keep doing interviews, and all I keep thinking about is I just want to talk to you. And I was like, oh. So she offered me the job, and I was like, okay. And I wrestled through it. I remember.
Well, they obviously saw something in you because your age.
Yeah.
In the role that you're
I
being
had just
hired
turned
for.
21.
Yeah. And you didn't have a lot of in-depth work experience, let alone none in that line of work. Like, that was an investment on behalf of KW, but they saw something in you.
Yeah. It was wild. And anyway, fast forward, Lionel Wilson actually ended up hiring me, who I still love him to this day. Like, I can't thank him enough. I still think he's crazy for hiring me. I'm like, I was 21 years old. I had just like gotten married not even a year ago. Like, I didn't have any financial experience. And he told me, he was like, I'm not hiring you because of experience. I'm hiring because you have things that I can't teach. Yep. And I was like, okay. And he was so supportive. Like, I jumped in and learned so much. And so he was so supportive and helped me so much. And Teresa helped train me. I mean, she was there. Like, she even took my calls afterward when I still had things come up, So yep. I had a lot of support, and I was super grateful for it. And actually, during my time at KW, I tell people the greatest thing that came out of KW are the relationships I have. And one of the best relationships I have is with my friend Corinne.
Who's a saint.
She is. I didn't know what like love was until I met Corinne. And I didn't know what it meant to be a friend until I met her. And she was the first person, I feel like, who never tried to fix me. She would just sit and she would just listen. And she started like praying over me. And I had never really had people like pray over me like that. And she just is such a good example of like the love that Jesus has for his people, and like just walking through life with people and just loving on people. Like, so I'm still like, she's my soul sister. Like, I love that girl, and her and I have been through a lot of ups and downs. We work together in different things. So and she's just so loving. Like, I tell her all the time, like, everybody needs a Corinne.
Yeah.
Like, and she's always like, stop. But I'm like, it's so true. Like, everybody needs a Corinne.
Well, I think of the first time I met Corinne, it was in the Corvallis office, I believe. And we hit it off from day one. And you could just tell, like, this is one good human being, like, just kind-hearted, sees the good in everybody, and just wants to help. Yeah. Like you said, there was no judgment. There was nothing. Like, what can I do to help? Yeah. I'm happy to do it. And that's just Corinne.
Yeah. She was like the most emotionally safe person I know. Like, you could just, like, I've told her everything. Like, it's just, I don't know. She is such a gift to this world. And I want everybody to meet her and get to.
Well, it sounds like maybe an opportunity to have her on the podcast. And let's have others get to know who Corinne is and what she's about. So when you came at KW, you spent time in the MCA role. You spent time as a DFI, Director of First Impressions, and you did some in the MCA role. You were CFO as well, helping with the financials and learning that role. I like what you said about Lionel saying, I didn't hire you for your experience and what you know. I hired you for your potential and your coachability. And that, I feel, is so true in life with all my years of, working in the construction industry or just working around people. Sometimes, young people feel, let's just say, a 18-year-old fresh out of high school says, I don't want to go to college. And they want to go run heavy equipment. Mm-hmm. And they feel, well, if I apply for that job, I'm never going to get it because the guy next to me's, mm-hmm. five years experience.
Yeah.
Well, guess what experience does to attitude sometimes? Mm-hmm. An experience could make a bad attitude, which creates cancer to a team
Yeah.
because they may become a know-it-all or cock of the walk. And a good team does not need that.
Yeah.
And even though it may be an investment on behalf of the company to hire the 18-year-old with no experience, but they've got a great attitude, they're willing to learn, that positivity to a team
Yeah.
can far exceed what a 5-year, experienced operator could bring if all they're going to be is cancerous to a crew.
Yeah, you've got to be teachable.
Yep. And I think that's something that Lionel saw, that you were coachable. You could be a sponge and you could be more groomed and taught instead of the easy way would be, let's just find somebody that's already got experience and we'll just work through it. Well, what if they're not the right fit? Like that's going to be a hassle. And that's something that all businesses are facing right now in the workforce, of being shorthanded and having to lower their standards and settle for somebody that's not the right fit for the job because it's the easy plug and play for now. But the problems that come with it,
Yeah.
the reality is it's costly.
It is.
And you can drive out good people because of it.
Yeah.
But all right, so let's jump into, you've done those roles at Keller Williams. How did things transpire when you and I started having a conversation and the opportunity came up where it's like, hey, is this something you'd be interested in?
Yeah.
I never thought to really look at you to be able to be in that role because you were far advanced for what I thought I could do for hiring my first assistant. I thought you were in another ballpark in a sense. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I loved the MCA job in a sense. Like, I learned so much. I grew as an employee, as a leader. I developed a lot of skills. Like, I learned things that you don't really learn in a classroom.
Real life skills.
So grateful for that job, like everything. And the people I worked with, like, love them to this day. It just kind of came down to when I started looking at my life long term, I was just like, it didn't excite me. And I was experiencing a lot of stress, and I'm like, I'm too young. Like, that's what I kept thinking. Like, I'm too young to feel this kind of stress. And so, my husband was like, he's like, you're working so many hours. You're never like present when you're home. Like, you're stressed all the time. Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
So I had been really, like, my prayer was that God would just open the door when the time was right. But like, otherwise, I will stay in this job as long as I'm supposed to, and I will do it exceptionally well.
Very loyal.
And so I just was like, I'm just going to have faith and I'm just going to wait it out. And then you and I had just kind of developed a friendship, just very generic, like, was just there to help you with different things with your business. And as you were learning and a newer agent, and I knew from the first moment I met you that you were going to go kill it, like, and just be an exceptional agent that people could really rely on.
Thank you.
And I think it just kind of happened organically, like, you ended up not hiring the person that you thought you were going to hire.
Yeah.
You encouraged them to go pursue their career and didn't even realize it.
Yeah.
And my girl at the front desk actually at the time was like, kind of looked at me and looked at you and kind of said something jokingly. And then it just kind of led into a conversation. Like, it wasn't like you came and were like, okay, so I want to offer you a job. It was like, no, it was like, we just started having a conversation. Like, we went to lunch and it was like, okay. And it was just like, I knew it was what God wanted me to do.
Yeah.
Didn't mean it was easy. Didn't mean it made sense to everybody else. And it was really hard, like that transition. But I knew it was right. And I knew everything was going to be okay. So yeah, I joined you. And that was like, I remember Steven being like, you keep telling him you believe in him, like, put your money where your mouth is, so to speak, and go join him. Like, if you really believe that he can do it and build it, like, go be a part of it. Go do it.
Yeah.
So he was super encouraged and by meeting you and everything, and pushed me to, he's like, yeah, let's do it. So joined you in May of last year on my anniversary. Steven's never going to let me live that down. And then,
So I'm going to interrupt you. Like, so my wife and I met you and Steven. We went out to dinner that next night. It was a Friday night, and it was like, let's talk about it. Like, let's see, because we feel strongly that if the spouses aren't on board,
yeah,
it's really hard to get that loyalty and that buy-in.
that is.
It's not, when we partner with you, it's not just partnering with Sarah, but it's like your spouse is a part of you.
Yeah.
And, even though Ashley doesn't work at Billy Scott Real Estate, right. She just manages it from afar.
She's our CEO. Yeah,
but it's more or less like you have the same mentality. Like, it's Billy and Ashley that we're committing to. Yeah. It's not just Billy.
Yeah.
And I think that was important. And taking the time to meet with you and Steven and talk about it over dinner, what your career goals were and how it looked. And I think something that I stressed was like, Sarah, we're going to fail at certain things. We're going to fall forward at certain things. Yeah. We're going to make mistakes. Yeah. Like, this is new. I don't have a playbook, but we're moving forward. Yeah. And I was excited. I love the industry. I knew that there was so much potential out there. And I was just in disbelief of the potential of like, oh my gosh, like Sarah would be an incredible hire if this happens. And I literally, the next morning, I accepted that I was prepared for the phone call to be like, Billy, I really would like to start with somebody that has something in place, systems in place, instead of like building it from ground one, ground zero. And I thought, man, I'm prepared. Like, it's just, I don't know that it's going to happen. And then you called me. I was on the way to an open house or something. Yep. And you're like, all right, hey, I want to talk about our conversation last night. Yeah. And, I was shocked. Like, I was excited. I was jacked. Like, I was just like, oh my gosh. Like,
you were so shocked. It was so funny. I was like, why are you shocked? I was like,
yeah.
I didn't realize how that happened.
So what was it when you called on that Saturday morning and you and Steven chatted? What was it that really helped make your decision to join Billy Scott Real Estate, knowing that we were ground zero and it was going to be a battle?
It really just came down to, I knew you were going to value me as a person, and I just knew that you were going to support me as a young professional, and you were going to believe in me and help me develop and fail forward and be gracious as I'm learning. And I tell people, like, working for you is like, when I come into the office, it's a home away from home. Like, it really is. Like, I literally have slippers in my office. Like, it's great. But like, you and Ash, like, I've told you, and you're not paying me to say this. Like, I genuinely mean this. Like, I don't ever want to work for anybody else.
Well, let's just keep it that way.
Like, I love it. Like, as long as I can work for you is how long I want to work for you. Like, I'm beyond happy with where I'm at. I love what I do. There's always days that are hard. And also, like, I'm sure there's people who are like, why are they starting a podcast? They haven't even been, like, I haven't even worked for Billy for a year, right? But that's like part of what we want to do is, like, you always see people when they're like, selling hundreds of units and they do a podcast and they talk about all their success. And it's like, how about people just join us on the journey of us figuring it out and developing? And like me, actually I've never been an assistant to a real estate agent. I'm learning all these new things. You're learning how to be a real estate agent.
Yep.
And now we're building a business and we're building a team and we're changing people's lives and we're helping people. Like, talk about doing something big, Like, so I'm excited. I love it. I'm so honored. Can't believe, like, you wanted to work with me, I guess. Like, can't believe you hired me. Like, same thing. All of my jobs, I've had no experience. And, like, people just hire me and I'm like, what? Okay.
But like we talked about earlier, it's that coachability, like your integrity, like who you are as a person, how you treat others. Like, the culture that we talk about at Billy Scott Real Estate is you're an example of us living and breathing it,
Mhm.
of like what we want to, uh, portray to our clients, like how we want to treat others, how we want to take care of clients are like family. They begin as a client, they turn into friends, and then they turn into family. And like if we do what we're supposed to do and we get to lead with our hearts,
Mhm.
like that's the thing that's awesome about it. And we're in charge of it. Like we're in control of it. But when you say like you saw that I was going to believe in you and I was going to help you and mentor you, it goes vice versa. Like it goes both ways because there's things that you're bringing to the table that's pushing me outside my comfort zone,
Mhm.
that's allowing me opportunities for growth, seeing things with a different light
Mhm.
because we don't agree on everything.
Mhm.
But that's the great dynamic is we can be diverse, but
Mhm.
we can be comfortable with bringing up um, some of the truths of how we're looking at stuff.
Mhm.
And it's not just, you don't feel
Yeah.
obligated to be like, oh, whatever Billy says, this is what goes. Like, let me just tell you, if it's afternoon and she hasn't ate lunch, whew, she gets a little hangry and it's a non-filtered response right there.
No, I'm
Uh,
really sweet. I promise all the time. Yeah, but you create that safe space for me to be honest and vulnerable. Like you don't want just a robot who just does what I'm told. Like you always ask for my insight and opinions on things.
yeah.
And like that's like rare. Like bosses, a lot of them are like, like just do what I say. Like, oh, do you have something to add? Okay, no, thanks, great, and moving on, right? You always want to talk things through, and it makes me feel appreciated as a team member that I'm not just your employee. Like we're partners in a sense. Like,
Yeah.
and I really appreciate that. I think my advice to young people is don't let your age determine whether you think you'd be good at the job that you want. Don't let that create this fear that you can't go after it. Go hone in on your skills. Take criticism. Like
Yes.
be okay with like failing and
Yes.
and people giving you advice and telling you like, hey, you need to grow in these things, you need to learn these things. Like dig in. Like the more I dug into myself and really like developed and honed on my skills and really wanted to grow,
Mm-hmm.
the more opportunities I started to get, bigger opportunities. But it all started with me wanting to be self-aware and want to learn and want to be teachable. Like I always thought like, man, if I'm someone's employee, like how would I want as a boss? Like how would I see me? And that's just so important to be able to look at yourself that way
Yep.
and just go for it.
And when we talk about other young professionals or just people in general, like I never like the term boss just because it's like I always like it as like we're teammates, like we're partners, like we're
Yeah,
in
Ash
this.
is the boss.
Yeah. You see, there's the clarity. There's the real CEO. I want to be a part of the team. I don't want it to just be like, oh, because he's the boss or he writes my paycheck. Like,
Mhm.
no, like we're in this together.
Mhm.
We're gonna grow together. We're gonna have success together.
Yeah.
We're gonna make mistakes together. Like, but we're on this journey together.
Yeah.
And that's the loyalty part of it that I saw in you with pushing through your roles in MCA and different things. Like, man, like Sarah would be just an incredible addition to what I could do and keeping me in line because I'm going a lot of directions and I need that right hand to steer a little bit. So I'm very honored to have you as a teammate and a partner, and
Thank you.
look forward to more of it.
Thank you.
What is the biggest impact that you want to make in your role or in the future towards others?
That's a great question. um I just want everybody to feel like, for me, no matter who I'm interacting with, whether it's clients, whether it's, lenders, title reps, whoever, that it's like we're like I'm with you for life. Like I'm here. Like
Yeah.
you need to talk about something, like I got you.
Yep.
This isn't just about business for me. Like it's not that I don't care about the business, but like I care way more about people. Like I will stop and not get my job done if it means that I'm giving my attention to somebody who needs it,
Yep.
that needs to feel loved and supported. And so I want to make an impact, especially with young adults. Like to go work hard, to go dive in, to love and treat people the way that we deserve to all be treated,
Yeah.
and to have that be your focus. Like, the money will come. Like, money is really not that hard to make. Like, it really isn't. It's hard to make money, and it's hard to not make money. Like, you just choose what you want, right? Choose your path. But if you do right by people, like, it comes.
It will follow.
Yeah. And I just want to make an impact in that way in our business. Like, I I'm a hugger. I want people to just feel loved. Like, just like I just desire that. And I know that's what we both desire for, our team and everything moving forward. But yeah, that's I guess that's really at my heart.
Yeah. Well, I think you live and breathe that. I don't think you just say it.
Mhm.
And people that know you, they know that that's Sarah. That's coming from her heart. I'm going to wrap up with one last question. So you talked about, oh my God, I'd never leave Billy Scott Real Estate. But I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I want you to be honest.
Okay.
What is your dream job? You're not even
Ooh.
24 years old.
Yeah.
She just went to her first liquor store. Like, tell me, what is this? What is your dream job? And I would be willing to bet it's something to do with people.
Yeah. Well, like, what I had talked about before, like my passion was like, I wanted to go into ministry, like whatever that looked like that's what I wanted to do. Go travel, go be a missionary, whatever, go work in a church, like whatever it looked like. But your ministry really is wherever you are. And I've learned, like, my ministry is right here, like with the people that are here, the people I'm around, and like I'm here for a reason. But I don't have like a dream job. I know that some people like have that, like they're 5 years old and they're like, I'm going to be a firefighter, and they actually become one, right?
Yeah.
I never really had that. I was like, I could do so many things. Like, I had so many things. I was like, I want to be an architect. I want to be a singer. I want to write music. I want to go tour. There were so many things I wanted to do. I guess I would answer that by saying I don't necessarily have a dream job. I just have a dream purpose.
Yep.
No matter where I am, no matter what job I'm in, it's like I have this dream purpose of really making an impact where people feel loved and that they know who truly loves them. And that we have this safe space where it's like you're heard, you're validated, you're supported, like no judgment, no shame. Like, I'm not here to convict you one way or the other. Like, I'm just here to walk with you.
Yep.
Like, I got a shoulder to lean on if you need it. I got a laugh that wants to laugh with you. Like, that's my dream life, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty special. Well, with that being said, I really want to thank you for taking the time to dig deep. I know you always said you want to be the one asking the questions.
Yeah, I hate this.
and interview others and interview me and different business professionals. But really, people need to know who Sarah Cade is and what you're about, where you're from, and they got a little taste of it today. So thank you for coming in and being vulnerable and showing that side that everybody loves about you. So we're going to wrap up with that. But thank you to anybody that was watching, and please don't hesitate to like or share or follow, as this is kind of subscribe, whatever the terminology is. I'm aging myself again. So thanks for taking the time to watch, and let us know if there's anybody or anything in the industry that you guys would like to see more of. This is growing in progress, so look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.